Eve's magnetic boots clicked against the corroded deck plating of Level 47 Section D of Redford 1 Station with all the subtlety of a malfunctioning cargo loader. At 5'2", she was used to being underestimated, an advantage in her line of work, but these damn boots made her feel like a stomping giant. Not that it mattered much here in the depths of what locals called the Ghost Quarter. The only residents were the memories of lost spacers and the ever-present hum of ancient life support systems. Whose brilliant idea was it to build these things for people with actual feet? She muttered, adjusting the magnetic field strength for what felt like the 100th time. The boots had been designed for someone considerably larger, like most equipment in space. Story of her life. Her target lay ahead, Residence D-471, the sealed home of Captain Solomon Reich, missing for 40 years in the mysterious expanse of the cloud. The stories about Reich had circulated through every dim-lit bar and cramped cargo hold from here to the rim. Tales of impossible riches, of secrets that could reshape humanity's understanding of the cloud itself. Eve had dismissed them as spacer fairy tales until 3 months ago, when she'd intercepted that transmission from Reich's old first officer, the dying man's ravings about coordinates and the discovery had been compelling enough to bring her here, to this forgotten corner of an already forgotten station. The security panel beside the door caught her attention, an ancient Helix 7 model, its casing yellowed with age. A smile tugged at her lips beneath her breather mask. She'd cut her teeth on these models back when she was starting out, though she hadn't seen one actually powered up in years. Wait, powered up? Wait, you're saying the powered up? Eve leaned closer, her dark eyes narrowing at the panel's power indicator. It pulsed with a weak but steady green light, despite the residence being abandoned for nearly half a century. At least there were distilleries roaming the streets, she said. Oh, that's not suspicious at all, she growled, fishing her quantum lockpick from a pocket of her utility vest. Who keeps paying the power bills for a dead man's home? The device hummed to life, its holographic interface casting her face in a pale blue glow. Her fingers, small but quick, danced across the projected controls with practiced precision. The lockpick interfaced with the panel, cycling through billions of possible combinations in microseconds. But something was wrong. The security protocols were active, not just active, but recently updated. Eve felt her temper flaring as the lockpick encountered firewall after firewall. Come on, you obsolete piece of... She caught herself, took a breath. 10 years of professional thieving had taught her that losing your cool was the fastest way to get caught, or killed. Still, after what she'd paid her contact for this tip, the whole thing was starting to feel like a waste of... The panel chirped softly, and the door whispered open with a hiss of equalizing pressure. Eve grinned, her earlier frustration forgotten. That's more like it. She tucked the lockpick away and peered into the darkness beyond. The air that wafted out carried the musty scent of abandonment, tinged with something else. Something metallic and old. She checked her chronometer, 2:17 station time. The Ghost Quarter lived up to its name at this hour, with most of the station's 250,000 inhabitants either sleeping or working in the busier levels above. Perfect timing for a little breaking and entering. As Eve stepped through the doorway, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. But that was ridiculous. Captain Reich had vanished 4 decades ago, along with whatever secrets he'd discovered out there in the cloud. And the dead didn't care about thieves. She was about to learn just how wrong that assumption was. The air inside was stale but breathable. Eve removed her breather mask, hooking it to her utility belt as her enhanced eyes adjusted to the gloom. She'd paid good money for those cybernetic upgrades, and moments like this made them worth every credit. The residence slowly came into focus, a testament to organized chaos that made her own cramped quarters look Spartan by comparison. "Someone had a hoarding problem," she whispered, ducking under a suspended star chart that hung at what would have been eye level for someone of more typical height. The advantage of being small, she mused, was that most security systems were calibrated for average-sized humans. The disadvantage was, well, just about everything else in space. Star charts covered every available surface, their holographic displays frozen in time, showing swirling calculations that made her head hurt just looking at them. Data streams had died mid-flow decades ago, creating strange light sculptures in the darkness. At least 3 different mapping systems overlapped on the walls, each one focusing on a different aspect of the cloud's mysterious composition. "Quite the obsession you had, Captain," Eve muttered, carefully making her way deeper into the space. Her fingers trailed along a shelf of curiosities, leaving tracks in the dust. A crystalline sphere from the Andromeda arm pulsed with faint bioluminescence at her touch. Next to it, what appeared to be an alien skull, too geometric to be natural, seemed to track her movement through empty eye sockets. "Creepy," she growled, turning away from it. "Focus, Eve. You're not here for the decor." The captain's study lay ahead, visible through an archway that might once have been part of an old ship's bridge. The centerpiece was a massive desk, carved from what appeared to be petrified hyperwood, a fortune in itself. Eve's fingers itched at the sight of it, but she forced down the urge to calculate its black market value. She hadn't come here for furniture, no matter how valuable. Getting to the desk proved to be an exercise in frustration. The room was a maze of precariously stacked equipment, and Eve had to climb over more than one pile of ancient tech. "I swear," she panted, after a particularly undignified scramble over what looked like a deconstructed nav computer, "if Reich's big secret turns out to be his collection of space junk, I'm going to be seriously—" She stopped cold. There, spread across the desk's surface, was a holographic projection, unlike anything she'd seen before. It showed the cloud, but not as it appeared in any official chart. This version pulsed with complex patterns, like a living thing. Sections were highlighted with annotations in a script she didn't recognize. "Now we're getting somewhere," Eve grinned, reaching for her data scraper. She had to stand on her tiptoes to reach across the oversized desk, cursing whoever had designed furniture for giants. Just as her fingers brushed the projection's control panel, a sound froze her in place. The soft whir of servos coming online. Eve's heart raced as she slowly turned toward the noise. In a recessed alcove that her enhanced eyes had somehow missed, something was waking up. Something that had been waiting in the darkness for 40 years. "Morcott," Eve said, "You're the medicine." "Oh, come on," she hissed through clenched teeth. "This was going so well." Seldom gave. The maintenance drone emerged from its alcove like an ancient spider awakening from hibernation. 40 years of accumulated dust cascaded from its chassis as it unfolded, extending to its full height, which, Eve noted with growing irritation, was nearly twice her size. Its optical senses burned an angry red, tracking her every movement. "Oh, fantastic," Eve muttered. "A Mark 7 security drone, because this job wasn't annoying enough already." Benjamin's deep voice was pure affirmative exhales, accompanied by sounds of pain in the distance. These old security models were notorious for their degrading programming. 40 years of isolation wouldn't have helped its temperament any. The drone's head swiveled with a grinding noise that set Eve's teeth on edge. "Identify," it demanded, voice crackling with static and age. Eve's hand inched toward her pulse pistol, but she kept her voice steady. "Eve Washington, Estate Services," she lied smoothly, channeling her best professional tone. "Conducting a routine inspection of abandoned properties in this sector." She straightened up to her full height, not that it made much difference, and tried to project an air of authority. The drone's processors whirred as it analyzed her response. A beam of light swept over her from head to toe, making her suppress a shiver. These things could be programmed with lethal force protocols, and she had no way of knowing how corrupt its behavioral core had become after 4 decades of isolation. Incorrect already, the drone announced. Eve's heart sank. Or, Captain Wright's final protest: protect the map at all costs. She wanted to read more, but the skull paper of the book at shoulders stopped her. Map? The word slipped out before Eve could stop herself. Her pulse quickened. So the rumors were true. Reich had found something out there in the cloud, something important enough to warrant this level of security, even after his death. The drone's reaction was immediate, its chassis open to reveal weapon ports that had been cutting edge 4 decades ago but were still plenty lethal. Unauthorized access, insist, the robotic demanded. UN authorized access, insist, probably from a previous drone, micro-interface active, preferably in pre-flight. Oh, shut up, Eve snapped, her temper finally getting the better of her. She dropped and rolled as the drone's first shot sizzled through the space where she'd been standing. Being small had its advantages. She was a harder target, and she'd learned to use that. The drone's targeting systems had clearly been calibrated for average-sized intruders. Its shots went high as Eve scrambled behind Reich's massive desk, energy bolts leaving scorched trails across the study's walls. Ancient star charts burst into flames, filling the air with acrid smoke. "You know what?" Eve called out, more annoyed than scared now. "I've had enough of this day. First those stupid boots, then this oversized furniture, and now you?" She pulled her EMP generator from her vest pocket, an expensive piece of kit that she'd hoped not to use. "Let's see how well you've maintained your surge protectors over the last 40 years. He looked at her. It couldn't be quite obvious in that maddening old habit plank that hadn't moved it. The drone smashed through the desk like it was made of paper, sending hyperwood splinters flying. But Eve was ready. She rolled between its legs, thank goodness for small stature, and slapped the EMP device against its central processor. "Happy retirement," she growled, triggering the pulse. The effect was spectacular. Electrical arcs crawled across the drone's surface like lightning. Its red eyes flickered, dimmed, and went dark. The massive machine toppled backward with a crash that Eve felt through the deck plates. Silence fell, broken only by the crackle of burning papers and Eve's heavy breathing. She stood up, dusting herself off and kicking the dead drone with perhaps more force than necessary. "That's what you get for shooting at me, you oversized trash compactor." But as her adrenaline faded, she realized something had changed in the room. The drone's words echoed in her mind. Protect the map at all costs. And now, from somewhere behind her, came a new sound, a soft hum, almost melodic, emanating from what remained of Rife's destroyed desk. "Well," Eve said, turning slowly toward the sound, "this should be interesting." Eve approached the remains of Reich's desk cautiously, her boots crunching over splinters of hyperwood and shattered electronics. The humming grew stronger, seeming to resonate with something in her cybernetic eyes. Whatever security system the drone had been protecting, she'd apparently triggered it, though whether that was good or bad remained to be seen. "If another robot pops out of there, I swear I'm retiring," she muttered, fishing a backup EMP charge from her vest. The first one had fried itself, along with the drone, and she wasn't about to face another surprise unarmed. The desk's surface began to ripple like liquid metal, the remaining fragments flowing together and reforming. Eve took a step back, her grip tightening on the EMP charge. "That's different." A holographic matrix burst to life from the reconstructed surface, far more sophisticated than the crude star charts that decorated the walls. The image resolved into a man, elderly but straight-backed, with eyes that seemed to contain entire nebulae. Captain Solomon Reich himself, preserved in light and data from 4 decades ago. "If you're seeing this," the hologram began, its voice carrying the weight of ages, "you've defeated my guardian. Congratulations." The image smiled, and Eve felt an uncanny sensation, as if Reich was looking directly at her. "You're either very skilled or very desperate, possibly both." "Little of column A, little of column B," Eve replied automatically, then felt foolish for talking to her recording. She had to stand on her tiptoes to get a better view of the hologram. Reich's furniture issues apparently extended to his messaging system. "You seek the coordinates to what I found out there in the cloud," Reich continued. His image flickered, showing momentary glimpses of a younger man, as if time itself was unstable in his recording. "Let me save you further trouble. I destroyed them." Sergei Reich looked up. "You've got to be kidding me," Eve exploded, her temper flaring. "I did not just fight a homicidal robot for nothing." She kicked a piece of hyperwood, immediately regretted it as pain shot through her toe, and hopped awkwardly for a moment while swearing creatively in 3 different languages. The hologram continued, unperturbed by her outburst. "However," Reich's image said, causing Eve to freeze mid-hop, "that doesn't mean I've left nothing behind. The cloud holds secrets that could reshape humanity's understanding of the universe itself. But knowledge, Miss Washington, comes with responsibility." Eve felt a chill run down her spine. The hologram had used her name, her real name. But that was impossible. The recording was 40 years old, long before she'd even been born. "Yes, I know who you are," Reich's image said, that enigmatic smile returning. "The cloud showed me many things, including this moment, including you." "That's..." Eve swallowed hard. "That's not possible." Is there?" "The cloud exists outside conventional space-time," Reich explained. "What you call a nebula is merely its shadow, cast across multiple universes simultaneously. The coordinates you seek wouldn't help you. They don't point to a place, but to a moment. A possibility." Eve found herself sinking into what remained of Reich's chair, her mind reeling. She'd come looking for treasure coordinates, maybe some ancient alien tech to fence. Instead, she was getting a physics lesson from a 40-year-old recording that somehow knew her name. The hologram's expression grew serious. "You have a choice to make, Ms. Washington. One that will affect far more than just your own future. Are you prepared to learn the truth about the cloud?" Eve opened her mouth to respond, then realized she was still talking to her recording, wasn't she? But before she could sort out her thoughts, the hologram flickered again, and Reich's next words made her blood run cold. "Can we go on to the next topic?" "Choose carefully," he said. "They're watching." Eve Washington sat in Reich's oversized chair, her feet dangling above the floor like a child's, as the hologram's words hung in the air. "They're watching." She fought the urge to look over her shoulder, keeping her eyes fixed on Reich's translucent form instead. "What I discovered out there..." Reich's image flickered again, showing glimpses of a younger man with wild eyes and disheveled hair. "It wasn't meant for us. Not yet. The cloud holds secrets, older than time itself. Mysteries that humanity isn't ready to face. I spent my final years ensuring no one could follow my path." "Then why leave this message at all?" Eve demanded, forgetting again that she was speaking to a recording. To her shock, Reich answered, Gradually the two men returned to their former bonding, not without its effects. Because, Miss Washington, some warnings need to be heard. His smile held a sadness that made Eve's usual cynicism falter. The coordinates, the artifacts, the technology. I scattered them across 1,000 systems. But what I found, what found me, it can't be hidden. Only understood. Eve pulled her knees up to her chest, making herself even smaller in the massive chair. Her enhanced eyes picked up subtle variations in Reich's hologram, patterns that shouldn't have been there. The image wasn't just a recording, it was adapting, changing, responding to her presence. The cloud isn't just a nebula between galaxies, Reich continued, his voice dropping to just above a whisper. It's alive, conscious, and it's watching us. Always watching. It exists in all moments simultaneously, past, present, future. It sees every possibility, every potential outcome, including this conversation. That's why you knew my name, Eve breathed. You didn't. The cloud did. Ah. Reich nodded. Now you're beginning to understand. The treasures you came seeking, they're real. But they're not gold or coordinates or ancient tech. The cloud offers something far more valuable. Knowledge. Understanding. But knowledge has a price, Miss Washington. Are you willing to pay it? Eve's hand strayed to her vest pocket, where a data scraper worth 3 months' salary sat unused. She'd come here looking for a big score, the kind of heist that would set her up for life. Instead, she'd stumbled onto something that made her question the nature of reality itself. What happened to you? She asked quietly. Reich's image smiled that enigmatic smile one last time. I learned to see, really see. The cloud showed me everything, including why a short-tempered thief with cybernetic eyes would break into my home 40 years after I vanished. You're part of something larger than yourself, Ms. Washington. We all are. The hologram began to fade. The choice is yours now. You can leave here, try to forget what you've learned. Or what? Look. Eve's eyes lifted to the viewport behind Reich's desk. Through the scratched plastiglass, the cloud hung in space like a curtain of luminescent silk. But now, with her enhanced vision, she caught glimpses of something more. Patterns, movement, purpose. Something out there shifted, and for a brief moment, Eve Washington saw the cloud as it truly was, a vast, ancient intelligence, spread across multiple universes, existing in all times simultaneously. And it was looking back at her. She understood then why Reich had disappeared, why he'd scattered his discoveries across the stars. Some mysteries weren't meant to be solved, they were meant to be experienced, to change you from the inside out. PM+. Standing on shaky legs, Eve reached for her comlink to call her fence. Instead, her fingers found the data scraper in her pocket. She placed it on what remained of Reich's desk, next to the now silent hologram projector. Keep your secrets, she whispered, not sure if she was talking to Reich's ghost or the cloud itself. Some locks are better left unpicked. As she walked away from Residence D471, her magnetic boots clicking softly against the deck plates, Eve could have sworn she heard Reich's voice one last time. Wise choice, Miss Washington. Wise choice indeed. Behind her, the cloud pulsed with ancient light, its mysteries safe for another day. But somewhere in its infinite expanse, in a moment that might be past or future or both, a short woman with cybernetic eyes and a quick temper was beginning to understand that the greatest treasures weren't always the ones you could steal. They were the ones that changed you instead. If this sport and its athletes could bring their knowledge to bear on individuals, they could strengthen competition and lift the world. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I hope you enjoyed it a lot. If you did, please be sure to give it a like. Feel free to comment and share this story too. It helps the channel grow. Let's make this channel huge together.